Very good morning. I was surprised to see so many of you here in this early morning. Yesterday, I heard about the panel discussion. There was a question about evidence. So yes, indeed, even though we are doing functional medicine, integrative medicine, evidence is very important, right? Because placebo effect is indeed very strong, more than 51%. A recent study, I read about the study of a study that more than 51% of studies are actually wrong, and retracted. But today, I will present with you ways to monitor the progress of your patients. So this is N1 type of evidence because we are also doing customized medicine that you need to customize for your specific patients. So you might not get like a big sample, but as long as things are improving on your labs, and these are functional medicine labs, then you can be assured that there are actually objective data for the progress of your treatment. We're going to have upstream, downstream type of effect, right? Neurotransmitters will be more actually downstream. This is what psychiatrists use, right? So we want to look at what is going on upstream as well. I will show you the work of Dr. Christopher Palmer, for example. Even though he's a Harvard certified psychiatrist, he doesn't actually use psychotropic drugs anymore, right? But addressing more the upstream type of causation. So the gap is pharmacology targets only neurotransmitters, but then we need to look at the gut, the mitochondria as well, right? To address the systemic cellular energy, microbiome, biochemical, right? This is the triad. So really upstream is mitochondria, right? Then you have the gut and neurotransmitters. And that doesn't mean you don't need to test what is going on downstream, right? So we have tests at WellLab for all the streams, upstream, downstream, so you can monitor your progress so that you can see whether whatever intervention you're doing upstream is really having an effect downstream as well. Here, we are talking about microbes, right? Microbiome. So from the gut, of course, most of our hormones, as we probably know by now, are produced in the gut. That's why the gut is very important, right? Or your endocrine cells, and any dysbiosis is going to cause leaky gut, and leaky gut leads to leaky brain, as they say. The LPS, which we can also get tested, and we can measure neuroinflammation as well in some of our tests that I will show you in a moment. Here is one of the neurotransmitter tests. This is just a urine test. Not only do we have the inhibitory, excitatory neurotransmitters, but we also have the neurotransmitters that cross the blood-brain barrier. The only neurotransmitters that cross the blood-brain barrier is noradrenaline, okay? Which will explain actually PTSD, post-traumatic stress syndrome. You know how? Why? Because like they found people suffering from trauma have less dream. They cannot dream. And one of the functions of dreaming is to reduce the emotional intensity of the experience. And the reason they cannot dream or less dream is because they have too much noradrenaline that cross into the brain. So it was by accident. One of the physicians uses a drug that lowers blood pressure. At the same time, it lowers noradrenaline. And that is now one of the FDA-approved drugs for treating PTSD. Because at that time, he did not realize it's because it impacts on noradrenaline. So all these need to be in place. This is downstream. So we have extensive neurotransmitter tests at WellLab. We have intermediate, we have basic, depending on what you want. The basic would just have the top 4, or even the noradrenaline. If you want the intermediate, you will have this. And then you can also have more, like glutamate is again excitatory neurotransmitters. So those of you visiting Asia, you will probably see spikes in your glutamate because of MSG. Be careful. And so this is the advanced version. So what is the difference is in the advanced version, we also give you the precursor. So say you have low serotonin, but then you find out that the precursor of serotonin, which is tryptophan, is also low, then that can well be the reason, and you can increase your tryptophan and see whether it works. And if it doesn't, maybe you add in some of the core factors like B6, B12, and if it still doesn't work, you can do a methylation test and see whether your B6 is compromised. You don't have the methylated gene. You can use the methylated form of B6 and see whether it works. If it still doesn't work, then you can do other investigations. So step by step, but at least this will give you a very good start. And the inflammatory markers, churonic acid, all this is also there to show you what is going on, right? So this is more advanced. And with the microbiome, we have the prebiotics, the short-chain fatty acids, all these need to be in proportion, right? And zonulin, you can see there, you can see the zonulin towards the bottom part. This one, if it is high, what does it indicate? Anyone know? Well, zonulin is a very large molecule. If it's high, that means somehow it got through your tight junction of your guts. Your gut have a very tight, called a tight junction to protect you from toxin. So you can just order zonulin instead of the whole thing. In fact, a lot of practitioners do that. And if it's high level, that is an indication of leaky gut. Your gut permeability is compromised. Zonulin is more than normal found in your stool. So this is a stool test. IgA is an indication of allergy, of course. So, of course, we review the whole range of opportunistic bacteria, different type of yeast, and as well, right? And again, if you have a different type of candida species, they will lay roots into your gut, causing, again, leaky guts, right? So that is the issue. H. pylori, and also the good guys. We have the full range of them as well. And also do the sensitivity test with antibiotics or natural substance to see how many percent they are sensitive. This organism that we find, right? S means sensitive, R means resistant. And also the antifungal as well. You can choose natural or not. We also do functional, this is functional leaky gut test, right? Different dosage for children or adults can consume this lactulose or mannitol, and then we see how much recover. More than the range, then you would be confirmed to have increased gut permeability or leaky guts. Well, of course, more upstream would be the mitochondria, right? So there are a lot of communication between the microbes. Mitochondria, actually, the microorganism itself is ancient bacteria, right? And a lot of inflammation, oxidative stress would affect the mitochondria itself. And the mitochondria have enzymes that drive hormones and mood, stress response, all that, right? So there's high energy demand right through. And when we talk about mitochondria, of course, the membrane of the mitochondria is so important. If the membrane is compromised and due to oxidation, then whatever you do for the mitochondria is going to be compromised as well. And we do have tests to look at the oxidative stress of the membrane of the mitochondria as well. So for the mitochondria, later I will show you, we have a test to look at the function of the mitochondria. Too much is also not good. It doesn't mean like you want a lot. So you need to be at optimum level of energy, otherwise you will have neurotoxicity. Like I mentioned, Christopher Palmer, Harvard certified psychiatrist, he cured, you can see that he used the word cure, treat, which is not used lightly in the medical world, schizophrenia, autism, through addressing mitochondria. Ketogenic diet is number one, which I practice. So that is the pathway, right, from neurotransmitters to the citric cycle that will then influence the mitochondria. How do we translate all this? We have a lot of symptoms from brain fog, fatigue, and a lot of it is due to neuroinflammation, the LPS we saw, due to the leaky gut, reduced energy production, ATP, that is then affecting your hormones, affecting your neurotransmitter dopamine, oxidative stress, leading to more inflammation and actually shifting away your tryptophan. So this is the other problem. Even though you might have sufficient tryptophan, but your serotonin is still low. Why? Part of the reason is because of inflammation. It shifts your tryptophan away, so it doesn't get to you converted into serotonin. But at least you know the problem is in inflammation if you have sufficient serotonin. We talk about zonulin already, short-chain fatty acids. So the cycle that I was showing you, and I'll show you more, is a test we call organic acids. It has all the Krebs cycle, all the ratio of the mitochondria enzymes, the lipid peroxide, which is the free radicals that is compromising the lipid of the membrane of the mitochondria. So how does this citric cycle relate to your metabolic health, your mitochondria? Let's have a look at that. The cycle oxidizes. You can see whether there's oxidation of your acetyl-CoA, which is in the citric cycle, whether that is compromised, whether that will compromise the ability in the electron transfer chain, NADH to FADH, and returning, which in turn donate the electrons to the what we call the engine of the mitochondria, which has 4 complexes: complex 1, 2, 3, and 2 and 3, which is like 4, right? Which I'll show you a report that we have on. Okay. The point is, at every point of the report, we will show you where things are going wrong. Is it in a complex 2? You have some of the mitochondrial enzymes that are compromised, right? Causing where energy depletion is. So there's redox balancing as well, signaling where is the ratio breaking down, and finally how it all lead to the epigenetic signaling. So which is why we have the epigenetic clock test. It's all connected, so we can tell what is the biological age of every organ of your body. And I'll tell you how Brian Johnson is using this test for his longevity Olympic. I think most of you should know Brian Johnson, or not? No? Well, he's one of the very well-known biohacker. I'll show you his photo in a moment. So which is why the epigenetic clock test is very stable inside a blood test. It captures a pattern, right, of change and give you a much better reading of the biological age of every single organs you have and your pace of aging as well. Yeah, so brain information, or the intermediate amino acids, it's all there, and a nice summary. You can recognize that there are a lot of these supplements that can be identify each part of the pathway to be deficient. You might need to take some alpha ketoglutarate, which is a supplement available, but you don't simply take it. You might have too much, or you might take the precursor first, the B1, the B2 simple supplement. So at the end of the report, we'll give you a precise cheat sheet of what is needed, and we can compound it into a spoon a day for everything rather than taking like 50, 100 pills, right? So that is the whole pathway. And so this is the organic acid test that you can order, just a simple urine test that will tell you what is too high, what is too low, and then where the pathway things are not working. And then at the end of the day, you will have tell you also the core factors, what is deficient, what is even too much, what inflammation too much, right? And then the downstream metabolites. So this, anyone know what is 2-hydroxyascorbic acid? These are actually metabolites of your estrogen. So again, there's ratio that is important, pro-cancer, anti-cancer. This can only be tested in urine, your E1 metabolites. If it is not in the proper ratio, then it is carcinogenic actually, but it's easily reversed. You can look at the ratio and then reverse it with natural nutrients. Okay. Yeah, so all the ratios need to be assessed. Your cortisol, of course, very important. That causes driving inflammation, right? These, again, I already mentioned the neuroinflammation markers, oxidative stress markers, looking at the membrane, your 8-hydroxydequanosine, which will compromise the membrane of your mitochondria if it's too high. So all these are reported, and even your environmental toxins reported. I'll show you a machine that can detox all these environmental toxins later. That was used by Brian Johnson, paraben, and all these that can be measured as well. Silene, right? It's quite impossible to prevent that, but we can detoxify. Ula would know how to do a lot of that. I just learned from her how to detoxify a lot of this toxin. Yeah, so you will get a nutrition guide, like this, what is adequate, what is not, and even your ratio EPA, DHA, is it adequate or not? Yeah, your coenzyme Q10, then you can see whether it actually make any difference here or not, or whether you need it in the first place, right? So that unfortunately was my report. quite a few months back. Not very good. I thought I was doing all the right thing, but complex 2 only have 10%, right, of my mitochondria functioning. Citrate synthesis too high, right? So yeah, that were recommendation of things that can help, on the different complex for me. A lot of things to consider on complex 1 for me. Yeah, so this is customized, right? I'm not recommending this for you per se. You need to do this, and then you see what is your precise protocol for yourself. And then we have the dry blood tests, that look at all the hormones that I mentioned as well, downstream, upstream. This at the bottom there, your adrenal function. Now we have the 6-point as well, not just the 4-point, to see how your cortisol rise, right, in the morning, and it should drop down in the evening to help you sleep. This is just a saliva test. If your cortisol doesn't rise or too much, then that will be a problem. You should be within that green zone, right? Again, I already mentioned your phase 1 detox, phase 2 detox, right? Need to be in place. If it's too high, phase 1, then it go back into reabsorb back into your body in phase 2, so which is not good. You have a EQ, not emotional quotient, but your estrogen quotient as well. That you need to be more than 1 to be in good health, and less than 1 will be also put you at risk for cancer as well, right? And we also show you the heavy metals that can be disrupting or your endocrine, even the gut health as well. And so all these things that help to prevent aromatization, just now I mentioned. So, and your melatonin, of course, it needs to be low in the morning and then high, or if you need to change that. And of course, what are the gut-specific probiotics, prebiotic that is lacking, right? One of the intervention, so this is Brian Johnson, okay? So you can see the machine outside. We have brought it in from Germany. So Brian Johnson found that he has very high level of microplastic, and this is one of the treatment he used together with hot sauna to really removing all the toxin back to minimum level. Some of you might have tried this out, and I'm using this at least twice a week, 40 minutes each time, to challenge, adapt your body's mitochondria, so it's forced it to get rid of all the senile mitochondria and regenerate new ones, right? So this is how it works. And this is Zverev. Any tennis player here? Yes, great. So back in 2022, this Benedict he's the inventor of Mitovic. Back in 2022 in the French Open, he had a fall. I think it was semi-final or quarter-final. Really broke his ankle, and he spent a couple of years rehabilitation using the Mitovic. And guess what? This year he won the French Open. Amazing. His first Grand Slam. So German player, and this machine is from Germany. So this is how it works. It stresses the mitochondria and put them in survival mode because it depletes you of hypoxia. We monitor the level of oxygen in your blood. We monitor it, ensure it doesn't drop below a danger level. But your body learns to adapt and get rid of all the senile mitochondria and keep only the good one and regenerate great mitochondria for healing. The takeaway is that behavior, right, including whether you win the French Open or not, is rooted in metabolic microbial health. So mitochondria is the bridge that bridge your microbial signals and all the way directly to your neurotransmitters, right, to your brain synapse. So don't only just address the downstream effect. You need to look at the midstream, the upstream. I would suggest there are a lot of evidence, measurement you can do. Functional medicine is just not just see how your patient feel. You should do a lot of this monitoring to see whether it's upstream, downstream, midstream. That is, things are changing. To see effect on midstream and upstream, of course, it takes some time. This is not like a drug, but then at least when you do the monitoring, you will see changes bit by bit towards good results. I believe I have some time for question. If anyone have any question, was any part of the report you want to go over? Yes, anyone has any question? Yes, exactly. So the neurotransmitter test that we were showing you here, this urine test that are measuring the metabolites of neurotransmitters from the brain. right? But the only one that gets in is indeed noradrenaline. So we will do the new neurotransmitter test, which will be a collection of your urine, and that is correlated with the neurotransmitters in the brain. All these neurotransmitters are produced that they are found in the brain as well, but they are produced in the gut. Okay, they are not produced in the brain, right? But they are produced in the gut, but then they are broken down, reuptake in the synapses in the brain. But the production sites are mainly in the gut. And noradrenaline is the only one that crosses the blood-brain barrier. Yes, they are used in the brain, yes. How do they get into the brain? Well, to the microbes, right? So that is why here, yeah. So they are produced in the guts, but systematically to the microbes, they will then get to the brain, you know. In the brain has synapses, right? And they break down, the neurotransmitters get break down and then reuptake. That is a cycle. But whether you have sufficient neurotransmitters or not in the first place, for all that to happen depends on the guts, which depends on the mitochondria. Right? So if there are dysbiosis in the guts, then you would end up having deficient neurotransmitters or too much in the case of, because there are also the high hypothalamus. People with PPDS, with trauma, that would have too much adrenaline and no adrenaline. So adrenaline doesn't cross into the blood-brain barrier, into the blood and into the brain, but no adrenaline does from the adrenaline, which then inhibits dreaming. Right? So people with trauma find it difficult to dream, and therefore they keep on re-experiencing the trauma because it doesn't reduce the emotional intensity. So by just blocking noradrenaline, it treats trauma. Yeah, definitely. My whole house is a bit like yours, probably not as severe, but I use filament bulbs only. No incandescents like, and I've tested my glasses. I found from Algid it's not good enough. They shine the blue light through it, and it doesn't get through these glasses from Japan. So at night I wear a bigger pair, a bigger lens, but it doesn't allow me to see things very far. So at night I will do that, but I think I need to get the even darker ones. You're talking about neurotransmitter, is it? Yeah, neurotransmitters. Well, I don't think blood can, because of all the metabolites of neurotransmitters, when they break down into urine. That is why it doesn't get broken down into blood, so that would not be possible. Spinal fluid, I think that would be interesting, but it's pretty invasive to do that, so urine is still highly correlated. Right, and then plus we have the advantage for hormones to look at E1, E2 metabolites, right? Which blood, there are a lot of labs that use blood for hormone tests, but they cannot measure the E1, E2 metabolites. They cannot measure E3. They cannot measure directly your free testosterone. And when you use blood, you put a needle in, your cortisol is going to spike up, which then affect the rest of your hormones. So it's not a true capturing of your hormonal environment. So for hormone, we use saliva as well, which is able to reveal your bioavailable hormones as well as urine or just dry blood. The dry blood, the capillary blood, is a very good indication as well of your hormones, right, rather than your venous. But we are coming up with a new test, so watch the space, called that everyone should do the tau, which is, you have talks on Alzheimer's and Parkinson later. But your tau is the indication of your amyloid plaque and all that. So we can see what is your level in the healthy range, or is it too much, that indeed we will use blood to do. But for the mitochondria test, it's just Parker swab. We don't use any blood, just the cheek material, and we'll be able to then look at your mitochondria environments, and epigenetic test, just a dry blood, right? So yeah, we don't use serum much, yes.
Thank you, Dr. For further Dr.
Sure.